Hi, my name is John Geiger, and I'd like to thank the chiefs for their very warm welcome to their traditional lands. Many people are cautious, some to the point of cowardice, people who, in the words of the actor Victor Mature, wouldn't walk up a wet step. Caution within reason is only natural. As Dr. Kenneth Kamler wrote in his book, Surviving the Extremes, no animal in its right mind ever intentionally puts itself in danger by going somewhere it doesn't belong. Yet human beings do go where they don't belong. For example, into the 8,000-meter death zone of Mount Everest. The Royal Canadian Geographical Society's Expeditions Committee this year has received a record number of applications for its expedition grants, literally dozens of expeditions, many of them grueling, involving novelty and risk, whether to explore the Monarch ice field south of Bella Coola on skis, or to undertake a 4,000-kilometer solo crossing of the Barrens from Alaska to Hudson Bay along the Arctic Circle, or to use a modified motorcycle to make a solo journey to the North Pole. Apparently, other imperatives override the survival instinct, but what are they? With our world mapped, photographed, scanned, and imaged, why do people in ever-increasing numbers, adventure and explore? In short, the answer is we are hardwired to. In an article in the journal Neuron, British researchers identified a neurological basis for people to intentionally put themselves in danger. Our brains, it turns out, reward risk. In an experiment, scientists found evidence that a primitive part of the brain has a role in making people adventurous and is activated when they choose unfamiliar options despite the inherent risks of the unknown. This suggests an evolutionary advantage for those who explore. The researchers found that the part of the brain involved a process in processing rewards through the release of neurotransmitters like dopamine is more active when subjects shun the safer options to experience the unusual. This is called the novelty bonus. The urge to explore is also the product of prosperous societies like our own. In his groundbreaking study, The Human Brain in Space-Time, the British neurologist W. Gray Walter refuted the accepted historical wisdom that exploration, with all of its inherent risks, was a response to economic and military necessity. To the contrary, he pointed out that during great eras of exploration, expedition-sponsoring countries were often hospitable, prosperous, and plagued only by familiar woes. During the Victorian era, when the British Arctic expedition commanded by Sir John Franklin sailed, as an example, Britain had a great empire and was very prosperous relative to any other time in its earlier history, and it gave rise to a golden age of Arctic exploration. Exploring, of course, a place long occupied. The 1950s was one of the most prosperous eras in American history. Unprecedented numbers of families reached middle-class status. It is also the decade that gave birth, of course, to the space program. In the developed world, subsequent decades have been highly prosperous and the societies stable. In the West, home has been a good place to be and one would think to stay. Certainly this has created the phenomenon of the couch potato. Yet those same comfortable, seemingly contented populations have produced large and growing numbers of people who've placed themselves at greater individual risk, engaging in exploration, extreme sports, and adventure travel. Voluntary risk has never been more pervasive. Risk-taking, it seems, is both part of our neurological makeup and part of contemporary life. As Walter argued, the human species is unstable in stable environments. The impetus for exploration is not merely the physical challenge, then, the hauling of sledges, the first ascents, the feats of endurance, the geographic trophy at the end. The impetus to explore is also very much part of our nervous equipment. The brain has a role in making us explore. Exploration or adventure travel or extreme sports are ways for people to gain insight, not just into the world, but to better understand themselves. Jill Heinerth, the Royal Canadian Geographical Society's explorer in residence, is one of the bravest people on Earth. A cave diver, she has undertaken dangerous technical dives deep inside underwater cave systems, as she puts it, exploring the veins of Mother Earth, and even searched for never-before-seen ecosystems inside giant Antarctic icebergs. She says she takes risks because, and I quote, "In the prickly sensation of fear, we find an opportunity to learn. Stasis to me is certain death, where embracing risk helps me live fully." Adam Schultz, an RCGS fellow and author of the best-selling Alone Against the North, put it this way: I accept the risks inherent in solo wilderness travel simply because to be alone in the wilderness is to nurture my soul, my deep spiritual connection to the land and nature, deprived of which I think I would be running a greater risk than not going into the wilderness at all. There are other motives too. There is, of course, scientific exploration, field science, and then there is RCGS Honorary Vice President Louis Kamukak, who has dedicated years of his life searching for sites related to the Franklin expedition disaster. Louis was born into a traditional family where there was no written system, and his work is inspired by generations of Inuit traditional knowledge. His expeditions, he says, are a way for him to understand what the ancestors are telling us. Indigenous knowledge is a great storehouse of information, a library of experience and learning and adaptation. For his part, Louis is determined those lessons are not lost. As he put it, it is very important to know your culture, beliefs, and your identity, and I think all Canadians could share in the benefit of that knowledge. One of the most intriguing manifestations of exploration is the subject I've been studying for a number of years. People in novel situations and under stress, often adventurers or explorers, even extreme athletes, experience a sense of an incorporeal being beside them, a powerful presence who guides and encourages them and to keep going. This phenomenon is known as the third man factor. Climber Jim Savigny had the experience on Delta Form at Lake Louise after he was swept down a mountain face by an avalanche. His climbing partner tragically killed, his own body broken and mangled. Somehow he was lifted up by a presence. He felt it was the presence of a woman whose empathy and advice saved his life. As he put it, I understood what she wanted me to do. She wanted me to live. For those who've had the experience, even in the midst of incredible extremity, it is deeply personal, sometimes spiritual, and therefore precious. The desire to explore is innate to human beings, and so much a part of us that our brains dispense novelty bonuses to encourage us to take the more adventurous path, and even create unseen beings to direct us to safety. To adventure is to escape from the comforts enjoyed by many of us. In increasing numbers, we seek out extreme and unusual environments. We seek to gain insight into the nature of Canada, of our planet. We hopefully seek to learn from the people whose lands we visit, but we also seek to explore to come to know ourselves better. It is a testing ground for the human spirit. In this year of celebrations of Canada's 150th anniversary of Confederation, I would urge you to get out and do a little exploring. You don't have to take big risks, and I use the word explore advisedly, as not everyone will take a modified motorcycle to the North Pole. But I would urge you to climb that wet step. Visit the Tombstone Mountains of Yukon or the Torngat Mountains of Labrador and Quebec, or just hike a stretch of the Trans-Canada Trail. If you do, you will discover something wonderful about the country we are blessed to call home, its cultures, its geography, its wildlife, but more than that, you may come to discover something about yourself. Thank you very much.